biggest mistake a lot of buyers make when choosing between the Victoria Core and the Westshore is thinking this is just a simple price comparison. They open up a listing, look at square footage, compare the age of the home, and compare the photos and think it feels obvious. The Westshore might give you a newer home, more bedrooms, a bigger garage, or a more modern layout, plus maybe even a better looking property for the money. But then you start thinking about the actual life you have. Where do you work? Where do you spend time? How often are you going downtown? And are your friends and family mostly in the core? And are you going to be okay with a commute? Do you care more about having a bigger home, or do you care more about being close to everything? And on the other side, the Victoria Core can look like the safer choice because it is more central. More established, and closer to a lot of what people picture when they think about living in Victoria BC. But then you start shopping and realize the homes can be older, smaller, more expensive, or need more work than you expected. So this is not really about which area is better. It is about which area fits your actual life better. Because the Victoria Core and the Westshore solve different problems. The Core usually gives you location, convenience, character, and connection, while the Westshore gives you space, newer homes, practical layouts, and a more suburban lifestyle. Both can be great, but they are great for different reasons. So let's walk through 7 things you need to know before choosing between the Victoria Core and the Westshore. And just to be clear, when talking about the Victoria Core, I'm including places like Victoria, Saanich, Oak Bay, Esquimalt, Vic West, and View Royal. When I'm talking about the Westshore, I'm mainly talking about Langford, Colwood, Metchosin, and the Highlands. I'm not really including Souk in this discussion. I'm G, I'm a local realtor based here in Victoria BC, and if you're looking to buy or sell anywhere in the Greater Victoria area, feel free to call or text me anytime. My info's down below. Now let's get started. First, before we even get into prices or the commute times or home sizes, the first thing you need to understand is that the Victoria Core and the Westshore feel very different. And that matters because you're not just buying a property, you're buying into a lifestyle. The Victoria Core feels more established. You have older neighborhoods, mature trees, character homes, long-standing local shops, older parks, walkable streets, and areas that already have a strong identity. You have places like Fairfield, Oak Bay, Fernwood, Esquimalt, Saanich, and View Royal. All feel different from each other, but there's usually a more established feeling in the core. You can often feel that the neighborhoods have been around for a long time. The streets are more settled, the homes are more varied. One house might be completely renovated, and the next might be original, and the next might be a character home that has been there for decades. For some people, that's exactly what they want. They like the charm, they like the character, and they like that the neighborhood does not feel brand new or overly uniform. They like the idea of being closer to the older parts of Victoria, like local restaurants, beaches, downtown, schools, and parks. The Westshore feels different. Langford and Colwood especially have had a lot more recent growth. You see more newer subdivisions, newer townhomes, newer condos, larger shopping areas, and newer schools, rec facilities, sports fields, lakes, trails, and family-focused communities. It can feel more practical, more spacious, and in some areas, more modern. A buyer might walk into a Westshore home and immediately think this layout actually makes sense. The kitchen opens into the living room, the bedrooms are a usable size, and the garage gives you storage. The home has enough bathrooms, the driveway works, the basement or suite layout feels more practical, and that can be a huge difference compared to some of the older core homes where the location is amazing, but the floor plan feels like it was built for a completely different era. So right away, the choice becomes personal. One buyer may look at older homes in Saanich or Esquimalt and love the established field. Another buyer may look at a newer home in Langford or Colwood and feel like it fits their life way better. That is why you cannot just compare the two areas on paper. Because the core might feel more connected to classic Victoria, but the Westshore might feel more functional for everyday life. And which one is better depends on what kind of life you are trying to build. Number 2. The commute is probably one of the biggest things that completely change how you feel about your home after you move in. When buyers look online, they usually focus on the house. They look at the kitchen, the bedrooms, the yard, the finishing, the photos, and the price. But once you actually live there, the commute becomes part of the home. If you live in, say, the Victoria Core, and your work, family, friends, gym, school, or daily routine are also in the core, your life can feel a lot easier. You may be close to downtown Victoria, the hospital, Uvic, Camosun, Saanich, or wherever you need to be most often. And that convenience adds up. It's not just about saving 10 minutes here or 15 minutes there. It is about the way your whole day feels. You might be able to leave later in the morning. You might be able to get home earlier. You might be able to run errands without thinking about traffic. You might be able to meet someone for coffee, go to an appointment, or head downtown without making it feel like a major event. That is one of the biggest advantages of the core. Your home might be smaller or older, but your life outside the home may feel easier. The Westshore can still work extremely well, especially if you work from home, work nearby, or do not need to drive into the core every day. For someone who works remotely, the commute may barely really even matter. If most of your life is in Langford, Colwood, Metchosin, or around the West Shore, then living there can feel very convenient. You may have shopping, gyms, restaurants, schools, you have trails, lakes, and daily services close by. But if your job is downtown, your family is in Saanich, your friends are in Victoria, your kids' activities are in the core, and you constantly are driving back and forth, then you need to be honest about what that will feel like. And the only way to really know is to test it. Do not just drive from a West Shore home to downtown on a quiet Sunday afternoon and assume that's your commute. Drive it when you would actually be driving it. Try it in the morning. Try it near the end of the workday. Think about what it feels like when you are tired, when it is raining, when you have somewhere to be, or when you have to do that drive multiple times a week. Because a home can look like a great deal when you're standing in the kitchen. But if the drive starts to drain you every day, the deal can start to feel different. Now, this does not mean the West Shore is a bad choice. For a lot of people, the trade-off is completely worth it. They would rather have a larger home, the newer layout, the garage, the extra bedroom, the yard, or family-friendly neighborhood, even if it means a longer drive. But for other people, the commute becomes a thing that they slowly resent. They like the house, but they feel disconnected from the rest of their life. So this is one of the biggest questions to ask yourself. Would you rather have more home, or would you rather have more time back? Because in a lot of cases, that's a real Victoria Core versus West Shore decision. Number 3, one of the biggest reasons buyers look at the West Shore is because the money often stretches further, especially when it comes to space and newer housing. This is where the West Shore becomes really attractive for upsizers, families, and buyers who are feeling priced out of the type of home they want in the Victoria Core. A lot of buyers started their search in the Victoria Core because that is where they pictured themselves living. They want to be close to town, they want to be near parks, restaurants, schools, coffee shops, or the ocean. And they like the idea of being in Saanich, Victoria, Esquimalt, Vic West, or View Royal. But once they start looking at actual properties, the reality can hit pretty quickly. Their budget might get them an older detached home that needs work, or a smaller townhouse, or a condo instead of a house they pictured, or a home with a layout that does not really work for their family. Maybe the bedrooms are small, maybe the basement ceiling is low, maybe there's not enough storage, maybe there's no garage, or maybe parking is tight, or the home is in a good location, but everything inside feels like a future renovation project. Then they look at Langford or Colwood, and suddenly the options feel more practical. The homes may be newer, the layouts may be more open, and the bedrooms may be bigger, the garage may actually work, and the kitchen may already be updated. Plus, the home could have more bathrooms, more storage, more driveway space, or a better setup for kids, pets, guests, or working from home. That can completely change how buyers feel. Instead of trying to force their life into a smaller, older home, they start seeing properties that actually fit. And that is one of the biggest strengths of the West Shore. It often gives buyers a path to the kind of home they wanted without having to compromise as much on the inside of the property. But there is a trade-off. In the Victoria Core, you may be paying more for the location than the house itself. A smaller or older home in a central neighborhood may still be extremely desirable because of where it is. Being close to downtown, established schools, beaches, parks, transit, UVic, local shops, and older neighborhoods has real value. And long-term, central locations are hard to replace. You can renovate an older home, you can update a kitchen, you can improve the floor plan to a point, but you cannot move the property closer to town. That is why some buyers still choose the core even when the house itself is not perfect. They are betting on the location. So this comes down to what matters more to you. If you want the home itself to feel bigger, newer, and more functional, the West Shore may make more sense. If you want the location to be the main advantage, the Victoria Core may still be worth the compromise. Number 4, the Victoria Core usually has the advantage when it comes to day-to-day convenience, especially if you like being close to things. And this is not just about being close to downtown. The core gives you better access to a lot of the places people use on the regular in Greater Victoria. Depending on where you live, you may be close to restaurants, coffee shops, beaches, schools, hospitals, downtown, and other aspects as well. That can make your life feel a lot more connected. And in some core neighborhoods, you can walk for coffee, bike to work, meet friends downtown, and get to the ocean quickly. Or even run errands without feeling like everything has to be planned around driving. And even in parts of the Victoria Core that are not fully walkable, you're often still more centrally located. That means your drive to different parts of Greater Victoria may be shorter overall. If you live in Saanich, View Royal, Esquimalt, you may be able to get to multiple areas without feeling like every trip is a big commitment. That is one of the quiet benefits of the Victoria Core. It does not always show up in the listing photos, but you feel it in your daily routine. Maybe the house is not as big as what you get in Langford. Maybe the kitchen is older. Maybe the garage is smaller, but if the location makes your actual life easier every day, that can be worth it. This is especially true for people who like to be outside the house and constantly doing things. If you enjoy restaurants, local shops, walking, biking, going to the ocean, or just being close to established neighborhoods, the core can feel like a better fit. But that convenience usually comes with compromise. You may have to accept an older home, You may have to spend more for less square footage. You may not get the perfect layout, and you may need to budget for updates, maintenance, or future renovations. And this is where some buyers really pause. They love the location, but they do not love what their money buys inside the home. So again, it becomes a lifestyle question. Would you rather have the location where your life is easier, or would you rather have the home itself make your life easier? The Victoria Core often wins on location convenience, but it does not always win on home function. Number 5, the Westshore often wins when buyers are thinking about practical day-to-day living inside the home. This is especially true for families, upsizers, or people who want newer homes with layouts that feel like they were built for modern life. A lot of Westshore homes, especially in newer parts of Langford and Colwood, are designed around how people live today. Open kitchens, larger living areas, more bathrooms, better storage, garages, driveways, and primary bedrooms with en-suites. Plus, you have more usable basements, more modern townhomes, newer condos, and bigger family layouts. Those things matter. Because once you move in, you feel the function of the home every single day. You feel it when there's not enough room for everyone. You feel it when there's no proper place to park. You feel it when you have storage for bikes, tools, sports gear, strollers, seasonal stuff, or whatever else your household has. You feel it when the kitchen connects to the living space and the home actually works for hosting, family life, or day-to-day routines. That's why the Westshore can be so appealing. It may not always have the same character or central feel as the Core, but for a lot of buyers, the homes simply work better. This is where a young family might compare two properties and have a hard time ignoring the Westshore option. In the Victoria Core, they may be looking at an older home that needs updates, has a smaller yard, less storage, and stretches their budget. In the Westshore, they may be looking at a newer townhome or detached home with more bedrooms, more bathrooms, and a layout that fits their life right away. That is a real difference. And for some buyers, that matters more than being 10 or 15 minutes closer to downtown. The Westshore also has a lot of practical amenities. You have major shopping, grocery stores, restaurants, gyms, schools, recreation, plus you have lakes, trails, sports facilities, and day-to-day services. So it is not that the Westshore is inconvenient, it's more that the convenience is better built around driving. You may not always have the same walkable village feeling you get in certain Victoria Core neighborhoods, but you may have everything you need within a short drive. For some people, that works perfectly. They do not care if they have to drive to the grocery store because the home itself gives them the space and function they want. For others, it feels too spread out. They want to be able to walk out their door and feel connected to the neighborhood. So the Westshore is not automatically better just because the homes are newer or bigger. It is better if the practical lifestyle matches how you actually want to live. Number 6. One of the biggest mistakes people make is talking about the Victoria Core and the Westshore like each one is just a simple area. They are not. The Core is not one lifestyle. Living in Oak Bay is completely different from living in Esquimalt. Saanich East feels different from Saanich West, and Fairfield feels different from Gordon Head. So some core neighborhoods feel very walkable and urban, while others feel quiet, residential, and almost suburban, even though they are still central. That is why saying, I want to live in the Victoria Core is only the starting point. You still need to figure out which version of the Victoria Core actually fits you. For example, someone who wants walkability, restaurants, and an urban feel may like areas close to downtown, or Vic West, or Fernwood, or James Bay, or maybe even Fairfield. Someone who wants a quieter family feel may look more towards Saanich, such as Gordon Head, Royal Oak, or certain parts of View Royal. Someone who wants character and charm may be drawn to older streets in Victoria or Oak Bay. And someone who wants a bit more value while staying central may look at parts of Esquimalt, Saanich West, or View Royal. The Westshore is the same way. Langford is not just one thing. Colwood is not just one thing. Bear Mountain feels different from Happy Valley. Royal Bay feels different from downtown Langford. Metchosin and Highlands are completely different from, say, a newer townhome development near shopping. So when someone says, sure, I live in the Westshore, the real question is, which part of the Westshore are you looking at? Because the experience can change a lot depending on the pocket. Bear Mountain might appeal to someone who likes golf, views, newer homes, and a more resort-style feel, while Royal Bay might appeal to someone who likes newer development, ocean proximity, schools, and a planned community feel. Then you have Happy Valley that might appeal to someone who wants more family-oriented suburban living. On the other hand, Metchosin, that might appeal to someone who wants space, privacy, land, and a more rural feel. Downtown Langford might also appeal to someone who wants to be close to shopping, restaurants, transit, and services. Those are all very different lifestyles, and this is why broad advice online can be misleading. Someone might say, the Westshore is too far. But if you work from home, love trails and lakes, and want a newer home, that might not matter. Someone else might say the Core is always better. But if your budget gets you a home that is too small, too old, or too stressful to maintain, then it may not actually be better for your life. The neighborhood matters just as much as the region. A good home in the wrong pocket can still feel wrong, and a slightly imperfect home in the right neighborhood can sometimes be the better long-term choice. Number 7. At the end of the day, this decision should come down to lifestyle. Not just price, square footage, or whether the home looks better online. The real question is, what are you trying to make easier in your life? If you're trying to reduce your commute, be closer to downtown, enjoy more walkability, live near older established neighborhoods, and stay connected to the city, the Victoria Core may be a better fit. If you're trying to get more space, a newer home, a better layout, a garage, a yard, or a more practical setup for your family life, the Westshore may be the better fit. The mistake is thinking one is automatically better than the other. They solve different problems. The Victoria Core usually solves the location problem. The Westshore often solves the space problem. And most buyers want both. They want the central location and the newer home. They want the short commute and the bigger garage. They want walkability and a quiet suburban street. They want character and modern function. But in Greater Victoria, this is usually a trade-off. So instead of asking which area is better, ask yourself, which trade-off can I actually live with? Because if you buy in the Westshore just because the home is bigger, but you hate the commute and feel disconnected from your normal life, that may not be the right move. And if you buy in the Victoria Core just because it's central, but the home is too small, too old, or too expensive for what you actually need, that may not be the right move either. The best choice is the one that fits your real routine. Think about your normal weekday. Where are you driving? Where are you working? Where do you get your groceries? Where do you meet your friends? And where do your kids go to school or activities? How often are you actually going to downtown? And how much do you care about walkability? Because having space is great, but do you actually need it? Are you okay with maintaining an old home? Are you okay driving more if it means getting better layout? Those questions will usually tell you more often than the listings will. Because the right home is not just the one that looks best online. It's the one that makes your real life work better. So, those are 7 things you need to know when comparing the Victoria Core and the Westshore. The Victoria Core is usually stronger if you want location, convenience, walkability, established neighborhoods, and a closer access to the city. The Westshore is usually stronger if you want more space, newer homes, practical layouts, family-friendly communities, and a more suburban lifestyle. Neither one is perfect, and neither one is automatically better. It really comes down to the life you're trying to build. Some people will be happier in a smaller, older home because the location gives them that lifestyle they want. Other people will be happier farther out because the home itself gives them the space, comfort, and the function they need every day. And if you're stuck between the two, that's completely normal. A lot of buyers are, because both areas have real advantages. The key is not to chase the best looking listing. The key is to figure out which area matches your routine, your budget, your commute, your family, and your long-term plans. And if you think about buying and selling anywhere in the area, whether that's in the Victoria Core, Langford, Colwood, Rural, Saanich, or anywhere nearby, feel free to call or text me anytime. Happy to chat. Happy to answer any questions you have. No pressure at all. I'm always happy to help you figure out what actually makes the most sense for your life. My info is on the screen. Feel free to call or text me anytime. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it, drop a comment about what you think about the Victoria Core or Westshore, and subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.